welcome to another episode of Supply Chain Lab. Today we are joined by a very interesting guy, Warwick Lord, who is currently building a port. And we're excited to hear a little bit about that. Thank you so much for coming to join us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I think before we start, you should tell us a little bit about yourself and the project that you're doing and how you ended up doing the project that you're doing.
How long do you have? No, so interesting story. So by way of background, I'm a chartered accountant. Did my articles at KPMG literally around the corner from here, so tend to know this place relatively well. Always had a property bend, and so went into property and did a property development in Midrand called Lord's View Industrial Park. And then when wanting to move out of the province, to somewhere that's a little bit more, family orientated, at least in my view, and sort of moved down to KZN and started or got involved with the Cato Inland Port. And what that is simply is it's where rail bring up containers from the Durban port area and trucks can now collect from inland port as opposed to the Durban port, which then means it starts to alleviate hopefully some of the congestion and gives us multiple exits or entries into the port area. So it's been a long journey, 12 years so far in the making, and it's interesting, this year we seem to have been getting quite a lot of success and traction. And like we say to a few colleagues, it's only taken 10 years to be an overnight success. So unfortunately, there's a lot of hard work in the background.
Okay. So why this project? Why is this project important? I know a lot of people only think about, ports when their goods are not on shelf. You know, that's the only time we actually think about it. But why an inland port and why is it important?
Okay, I suppose my previous experience helped me with that in developing a logistics park up in Johannesburg. Already gave me a little bit of an idea about logistics, cargo movements and flows and what clients are looking for in the premises that we would look to build for them. Which means that, excuse me, so when I then wanted to look for a project outside of Johannesburg, and we had a look at one in Cape Town. Interesting. Patricia DeLille, who was in charge at that stage, ended up buying the property from underneath us in Somerset West. So it was a little bit strange that that project was sort of put to one side. And the other project that we looked at aggressively was the Cato Inland Port. And the rationale behind us being very interested in it was that firstly, the fundamentals stack up fantastically. And when I say fundamentals, the fact that the Durban port is a lot of imports for the Gauteng market, roughly 70 to 75% of the goods that come into Durban port are destined for Gauteng. And this development is right on the N3 between the two destinations, just outside of the congestion of the Durban area and CBD. So it is also one of the flattest areas in KZN, away from the coast, and it's also where the three mass forms of transport intersect. So the pipeline goes through there, the rail network goes through there between the Durban port and Gauteng called the NATCor, or now it's renamed to the Container Corridor, and lastly the N3. So you've got the three mass forms of transport all overlapping in the same area, in a relatively flat area. It has very good attributes for the sort of development that we're looking for. Obviously, you do have a look at a few feasibilities and you have a look around, and so we thankfully on our first prize feasibility. We had to move around a few times, but we are now in a good geography. So it's been a long journey, but Cato Ridge has definitely drawn our attention simply because of the massive fundamentals and the fact that our supply chain, with the sort of Timu's coming in, Checkers 6060, we're just having more and more cargo flowing, and if we're not going to get it right, then we're going to have even more congestion all over the place. So to me it was fundamental, and it was an opportunity to do something that is good for SA Inc. and the country, and also that's commercially viable.
I like how you touched on Timu and Checkers as well. So I think for the daily person or the average person, they don't really know how a port would impact their life. But how would you explain to just the everyday person why a project like this is like a game changer for South Africa, and how it will help the economy?
Okay, no, good point. And let's take it right down to the sort of person in the street. That let's take this bottle of water, for example. Roughly 50% of the cost of this bottle of water is made up in transport. Now, no one knows that. You're nodding as if like, yeah, sure, that's fine. 50% of what's in here has been made up with goods moving, either the label moving into it, the bottle, the water, the bottle top, and then finally getting to the Checkers or the Spa or wherever, and then ultimately to the client. And so if you start seeing that 50% of the cost in your consumable products is made up in transport, if we improve this by 10%, we get a 5% reduction in our goods. And if you think about the beginning of this year when we were talking about putting up VAT because we didn't have enough funds, if we then have deflation because we are bringing our goods down, then we don't have to have a conversation about VAT. So there is only benefits with regards to getting the supply chain working more effectively. And the person in the street would see it when their goods are not on the shelf. Great. However, if your goods start staying the same price for the next 3 years, you'll notice that. Because we were discussing around the dinner table last night, the average basket that you're buying at the sort of shopping centres has gone through the roof.
It is insane.
Two bags and it's like 2,000 rand, and you're like, God, I didn't even buy anything.
I mean, now you have to pick which meal you're going to have.
It's not like yes, exactly. You have to be. This is a symptom of the supply chain that's not working as well as it could. And therefore, we've got all these costs baked into these products and baked into the system. And unfortunately, what we've started doing is we now accept this. This is the norm. And to me, that's so silly. We're scoring own goals. Let's stop scoring own goals and let's sort of see if we can improve the track record and the way forward.
And what are the timelines of this project? When are we going to see this come into effect? And what are some of the stumbling blocks that you're currently experiencing?
Okay, so the project has started. We're currently moving trains between the Durban port and Cato Ridge. Currently just completing a large truck staging operation for a company called SA Bulk Terminals that is a Bidvest-owned company. And so what's happening is it's now happening. It's not like building a mall or an airport that everything has to be built before you have the first plane or you have the first person walk in. Logistics tends to be a lot thinner margins. And therefore, it's a bit like backyard soccer. As soon as you find that, you put your 2 shoes down, right, that's the goal. And we start playing. And then as you get a little bit more developed, you put around 2 shoes the other side, and then you can have 2 teams because you've got one side, the lefts versus the rights. And then as you get a little bit better, you start maybe putting proper goalposts up. And so this is how the evolution of we are seeing the inland port goes. Because what we need to do is have it operational, but also have it washing its own face to a degree. And when I say washing its own face, you can't just keep pouring capital or money into these developments waiting for them to start improving. So you can't build it all and hope they'll come. Instead, you build a little bit and you start utilizing that. And you see that that's going quite well, and you do the next bit. Or maybe it's going slightly more left instead of slightly more right, and so you change your direction slightly. So at the moment, it's a beautiful thing, and I'll just sort of come into the podcast world because I was tired of my friends asking me, so when's it starting? I'm like, guys, what do you mean? It's been moving trains for 18 months now, 24 months. I mean, like, come on. And then we did a series of videos, as well as also some LinkedIn posts. And all of a sudden, my friends are going, congratulations for completing the project. I was like, guys, it's amazing, this thing called a little bit of marketing. All of a sudden, the perception's like, when is it starting to? Well done, it's done. Like, no, we're on a journey here. So how long will it take? It's like how long is a piece of string. However, we believe that we will start seeing significant further development and sort of accelerated development now that a lot of the boulders in the supply chain have been moved around. And by boulders, I mean that the private sector can now start playing on rail. You would have seen, I don't know if you did see, but the RCTSI, sort of the Maersk appeal against that was dismissed on Friday, and so now the private sector, this legal challenge that was holding up private sector involvement in Pier 2, is now totally open and ready to go and implement, which is great because these are the boulders that are slowly getting moved out the way so that we can have a good outcome in our supply chain. And specifically what I'm excited about is the ability for private sector to now operate in areas we couldn't before. We can now operate in rail, we can now operate in terminals, and ultimately I hear that the pipeline is also coming out now, which means we can start owning or concessioning part of that infrastructure, bringing private capital, and also bringing the time value of money and the sort of urgency that private sector money tends to bring to get the job delivered and operational, because the quicker you get it operational, the quicker you can start rentalizing or revenuizing it.
And how will it integrate with all the other ports we currently have? So obviously we have the Durban port, then we also have an inland port in Johannesburg, in City Deep. How does now this project kind of...
Good question. And so if you think about an airport, when you are flying somewhere, you need more than one airport because you want to travel to a destination. If you just have one, it's great to do joyrides and then you land back again where you started. Cargo is exactly the same. They need multiple of these inland ports because cargo has different destinations, different client requirements. And so our view is very simply that we need a lot more inland ports in order to have rail connecting into the road network, because very simply everyone keeps telling us about road to rail and we're going, great, where? At the moment it's City Deep, or it's Cato Ridge, or it's some other Transnet property, sort of Pyramid, etc. There are no private sector inland ports where this now road to rail interface can happen, and we need a lot of these. That's a bit, if you want to fly, you have to have an aeroplane.
Yeah.
If you want to move cargo from road to rail, you have to have the transfer points that this happens at, and if you don't, we once again is paying lip service.
And how are you integrating some of the new technological advances into this? Because I know the president has mentioned the mega smart cities that are coming. Is this something that you're also looking into in the project, or?
So I suppose, with developing a project in greenfields to a large degree now, you're always looking at technology and how to go forward in it. The rail is a very archaic almost technology. I mean, the way it was 100 years ago is basically how it is working now, except maybe the locos, the sort of electric locos are a little bit more efficient and effective, etc. But the mechanics of it stayed largely the same. What's happened now is, now that the private sector is coming into play into the public sector, what we are seeing is a few very interesting concepts coming in. One of them is actually a Multimodal Inland Port Association member, and that's called Rail Runner. And basically this is where a truck trailer can also go onto a train track, which means that you can now sort of drive the truck onto the train track, reverse the train on, release the truck, and the truck drives off. And you do that a few times, and all of a sudden you build a train. The benefit of that is you don't need expensive overhead cranes. You can also do this on an electrified line. Normally you can't do container movements. You can't take a container off a train with a machine if there's electric lines above it. However, when you're driving onto the track, you don't have any of those precautions or those restrictions. So this then brings another interesting opportunity, but it comes with another set of challenges, because the old technology is what everyone's got.
So how do you integrate the old?
How do you integrate it? And so that's some of the challenges and the teething problems we're going through at the moment. But we're always keeping our eye on how to do things better, more effectively and efficiently. And what we're seeing in the very short term is just those little data 3G little nodules that you can put on every container that then tells you temperature, whether it's stopped, whether the seal's been broken, etc. And more importantly, our clients can then know exactly where their goods are. Often when you start having public sector run goods, and specifically on train, you don't know where that train is. You don't know where your cargo is. And if you've got 10 million rands worth of goods in a container, and this is one of 50 of the guys, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. So that's how we're looking at technology, starting to track and trace a lot more. And then what we're doing on the bigger picture, and this is maybe South Africa as a whole, is there's a lot of effort going in by CRICMA and others like that into putting together all of the various telemetric data into a dashboard in real time, so we can start seeing where the snarl-ups are in the supply chain. Basically like a Waze or a Google Maps, but now for cargo. And once you have mapped it, you can then start getting quite clever with regards to avoiding certain areas. It's basically the Waze and Google Maps of cargo that we are looking to now get a lot more transparent.
And how long do you think it's going to take for us to start to see the efficiencies? I know this is a very difficult question. For us to really start to see the efficiencies that this port is going to bring. One, from obviously the pricing, like you mentioned, like in that it's going to help in driving some of the costs down, while logistics costs specifically. And then obviously in terms of time, from a transportation, like lead time perspective as well.
Okay, so I think, with anything incremental, it happens, you won't notice it day to day. You rub your eyes out in a year or three's time and you're going, oh, I don't have that headache of when I'm going to Durban port area anymore, sitting there for an hour and a half trying to dodge trucks. So I do try caution the colleagues that I chat to, it's not a silver bullet. It's a bit like going to gym or training or getting healthy. It doesn't make a difference how much effort you put in one day. It really doesn't. It's that continual time in saddle, doing it day after day, even if it's for 10 or 20 minutes. And so in order to answer that, maybe what we're seeing is a lot of companies, professionals, public and private sector, now looking to put a combined effort into solving this. And what we are seeing is that I'm sure you've heard of the old adage, don't let a good crisis go to waste. We have a crisis in the logistics space, which means that everyone is geared up to make those bold changes. Bold changes come with pain, with risk, with this. And so what we are seeing is that this crisis has led us to an inflection point where it's everything going on truck is not sustainable. It is damaging our roads. It has many unintended consequences. We need to get the various modes of transport acting in moving the cargo that they can move most effectively and efficiently. So what we are seeing, and it's at breakneck speed, so I'm trying to give you a lot of context so that when I give you a time frame, it sort of has some rationale behind it. We are finding that the changes in the policy space, the changes with regards to, if you think about it, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, no one was even talking about private sector running trains on top of the South African or Transnet tracks. Now all of a sudden it's like, when is it starting? In order to get this legislation right, the rules of engagement, it's onerous, and we're getting it wrong at times, and then we're correcting it as we go along, and that's why you've got many reiterations or drafts of certain things. So what I believe is we're sort of formalizing the rules of how the new supply chain is going to look. That is obviously a lot of backwards and forwards between government saying it's going to be like that, private sector pushing back because we can't get it to work economically. And depending how well our interactions and collaborations go, and specifically when Transnet are in the room, Department of Transport, and then you get the private sector all working together, you then have an opportunity to have a sweet spot and actually get it a lot faster. So this is very dependent on us putting vested interest to one side, us putting egos to side and saying collaboratively, how can we each bring our, I like the word BE, our best effort into doing this so that we can actually have this great outcome. And so there's a few things. The first thing is the private sector now able to start running trains on the train tracks. That has now been awarded. However, the award is not a contract. It's not there yet. And so there's a lot of issues, wrinkles that need to be addressed as long as that process. I believe it's going to take 3 to 4 years. Just having a look at the speed of things before these trains are going to start, private sector trains are going to start operating, which would then start making a meaningful difference. There's a lot of action in the meantime, in between that period of how we're going to improve it and tweak it, but I believe 3 to 4 years is where we start seeing real changes and we start moving the building blocks around. But that being said, if you've had a look at the latest announcements out of Transnet, out of TPT, we're breaking records. The new equipment has arrived. There's been a fantastic spend by the government in this space, and all of a sudden, 5 new tugboats in Durban port. And sure, there's some teething problems with new ones coming in, but we now have the kit. And now we can have a look at the staffing issues. We can have a look at the sort of management issues. You can't look at those sort of things when the machines are breaking down every 5 minutes because you get negative outcomes. So what we're saying as private sector is government has now invested a lot. We need to now follow that up with private sector investment. And what we're just hoping for is that the rules of engagement, are we playing soccer? Are we playing rugby? Are we playing cricket? What is it? Because you need different role players to play those different games. The quicker we can get those rules of engagement solidified, the quicker you'll see in private sector investment flooding in. But the process at the moment is it's a little bit fluid, which means finance is still looking a little bit left, looking a little right. First, is it cricket? I like cricket. If it's rugby, I don't like rugby. So that's the sort of where we are at the moment.
Okay, and how is this going to impact Transnet? Because I know there's quite a bit of inefficiencies, and I think if I think about it, as a non-Transnet person, there probably is a little bit of fear with regards to some of them losing some of the tonnages, which they probably weren't moving anyway, but just that fear that it's going to take away volumes from them.
Totally. I think whenever you change is scary and fearful, and change management is a big process inside organizations. I think Transnet has been in for a difficult ride for a long time. And let me take a little step back. And Transnet has had an unfunded mandate for as long as I can remember. Great guys, you're private sector, you must stand on your own and make profit and do everything. But by the way, this is the BE upliftment we want. This is the special opportunities you have to give. These all come with costs. And it's great if the government is then funding Transnet to do these extra roles that aren't economical. It hasn't been doing that for a period. So you're almost caught between being a private sector and having profit motive, yet being government almost orientated and having to pander to a slightly different direction. So that's the starting point. I feel that Transnet's been almost structurally put in a bad light, and you're going, guys, if you have to play soccer and rugby together with the same person, it's not going to end well. You're going to choose. So that is the starting point. And then what is happening though is we need to put this in context, is that we created Transnet, which is very big and has pipelines and has the ports in and has the track in. And what we had started doing is starting to get TNPA, which is the Ports Authority, but it's still inside Transnet. So almost we're having the referee and the players sitting in the same field, which is not quite right. So I think there's a lot of structural changes that are now happening that need to happen. I believe that you need to look at this in various components. You can't just say Transnet, because Transnet pipelines are not about to lose any of their muscle. However, if you look at TFR, Transnet Freight Rail, well, now all of a sudden the track has been taken away from them. So they were responsible not only for running the trains on top of the track, they had to maintain the track as well. Now that's been taken away from them. That's been given to Trim, and what's now means is they're just going to look after the rolling stock and trying to be as competitive as possible. They're the only ones doing it in this country at the moment. It's not like you have the only company doing the country and then all of a sudden 10 upstarts come and overtake it. We have to be realistic with this. And so I believe there's this place for TFR both now, heavily in the transition and post the transition, because their assets are paid off. They can be really lean, mean, and potentially be an operator that all the private sector try and get down to that cost base. Because your assets are all paid off. All of us now have to go pay between 250 and 2.2 billion rand for a train set, so the complete train set. We have to go buy those, and that comes with cost of capital, etc. So I do believe there's an opportunity. There's massive changes, and unfortunately, when there are lots of changes, it's scary. But then again, when there's changes, there's opportunity. And so there's always a balancing act. But I do believe Transnet's going to be a very different company and entity in 10 years than where it was 5 or 10 years ago.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a great thing for them.
To me, output. I don't care if it's who you are. If you're scoring goals in the soccer analogy, you're amazing. Short, tall, fat, unfit, whatever, doesn't matter. You score goals, and that's the same with Transnet. If you're moving cargo effectively and efficiently, guys, it's great. It's an old adage, and maybe not the right forum, but it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a black cat or a white cat. If it catches mice, it's a good cat. End of discussion.
That's true. So I think let's move into some of the opportunities that a mega project like this is going to bring in terms of like job creation and uplifting, I guess, the communities in where the project is close to.
Okay, so with a development like this, where you start building a new city, it starts off small and there's already quite a lot there, but you start building these freight villages out with the warehousing and all the other sort of ancillary activities that come, that has huge ripple effects. I mean, you're bringing, in our example, we're bringing just in what we are doing, not what the other parties around us are doing, in and around sort of 7 billion rand into a very small geography in Cato Ridge. That has massive multiplier effects. Just the sort of, to spend that amount of money in an area means you need service providers, energy getting put in there, and those service providers giving you energy need food, accommodation, or whatever, and so you get the next ripple down effect. And so it is very large. I'm a property developer by first love, and so developing in or alongside communities is always something that we take very seriously, and we see ourselves as part of that community. And how would you be acting as a neighbour in whatever shape, way, or form? And so we really believe in that this is a partnership, and it gives massive opportunities. Now, especially where we are in Cato Ridge, is we are part of the KwaNgqemba community, and that's running at sort of 50 to 60 to 70% unemployment. I can't remember the exact stats recently, but if you've got that sort of economic, let's say, stickiness or not upliftment, to have this sort of energy, economic energy come along, to me, I can't see any downside. As long as you can do it responsibility from an environmental perspective. But if you got 60%, 70% unemployment, it's not a good community economic opportunity. And so let's give guys something to do, guys and girls something to do.
And are you engaging the community? Are there opportunities specifically being created for the surrounding communities? So
I battle with the fact of, sort of the way you phrase that, and let's speak openly about it, is what are you making available for them? I'm saying, no, I've got lots and lots of opportunities. Who's going to come plug them? Okay. But come and try plug them. Don't expect handouts. Don't expect it to be packaged and all the rest. I mean, we're building an inland port, which means that is the focus. We want to do it as wide as possible with the benefits and it goes. But still, what we're finding is, if you're a go-getter in any way, shape, or form, you're going to use this opportunity. But as soon as you go give the person the fish as opposed to teach them how to fish, that's more the expectation. So we're very close to the community. In Nkosi, ward councillors, the Indunas, even the heavy men in the area, because there's always the heavy men in the area. And what we're trying to do with a lot of the guys is what I call gentrify them, if that makes sense, but take them from sort of community type business into business. Because everyone wants to do business. Everyone wants to have economic upliftment and deliver and get a return for it, etc. But when you start dealing with bigger business, they can deal in certain parameters. You know, you can't just rock up to their CEO's office and knock on the door and expect to get an audience and you're going to get a contract, you know, with MTN, for example. There's different processes you have to follow, and you also have to tick different boxes, i.e., is your company up to date? Have you got a tax number? Have you got this? And so that process is where I believe our role sits in regards to hear the opportunities. We can help you unlock them, but these are the hurdles. And if you need help with the hurdles, we'll help you. But we're not saying that's for this grouping and this is for that grouping and that's for that grouping. I find that happens enough when you start getting the vested interest in the area are trying to protect their turf almost. And so yeah, it's a journey. And the thing is with these matters, you have to be very real. There's no lip service, there's no marketing. These are people's livelihoods, and if they believe that they are being unfairly discriminated against or not getting an opportunity that their neighbour might be getting, that then has ramifications, because the guys don't tend to sit around and go, oh, I've been hard done by. There's some sort of activity that they tell me that they've been hard done by, and that's not normally good for the development or operations.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you're saying, because I do think it would be to their disadvantage if the opportunities were just given to them without them building the necessary skills to ensure that when the next project comes, they're able to take up those opportunities as well. Because the problem with giving the handouts is now the expectation is this will remain forever, but it's just like, it's a project, it has a start date and an end date, and when it ends, your business still needs to sustain itself outside of the project.
100%, but also you have self-worth when you are making it work. When you're getting given, there's this dependency attitude or feeling, and so I don't know how you feel, but I feel very great being able to have done a task, getting paid for it, being able to deliver for my family or for whatever. There's reward to that. Whereas it's like, please can I have some more, or whatever the case is. It's a different mindset, and so very much encouraging guys, be the master of your own destiny. You know, put the energy in, get up in the morning and try go and slay those dragons, and if you keep doing it, this is the thing, keep doing it, you will have reward in the end. The problem is, and this was interesting at the convention, I was at a conference I was at yesterday, the SME conference with Florence. It was interesting, some of the panel discussion up there, and I arrived a little bit late, was saying, yes, and new truck drivers mustn't be the big fat bosses sitting around. You should be the guys at the front, opening up the office in the beginning, you know, getting the guys there, because there's no space for for a idle body. Everyone needs to carry their bits. It's especially in the economy we find ourselves in now. It's hard out there.
Yeah,
you know, it's tough, and if you're not prepared to put in your best effort, know that the person next to it is, or your competitor is, and the expectation of, give me, who's going to give me? Lekker, but who?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And let's talk a little bit about some of the policies that are currently assisting and that are blocking the projects.
Oh, now you've given me perfect license. Thank you. And you've got me straight onto my back. Let me start off with some of the policies that I've touched on in the past, and then I'll get into the specific policy that potentially I've got the biggest bugbear with, or that I would like to see changed. The policies of open access and being able to now access what used to be public sector only is amazing. You know, as a principle, it comes with difficulties and complexities, but that as a policy is critical. Then what we started seeing is private sector participation policies. How do we actually do this thing together in a legal format? Because we have a Companies Act, and they get followed by the PFMA, which is a completely different set of guidelines. So we're playing rugby and they're playing cricket and soccer, and yet we must now interact. Like, it's a little bit strange because those rules of engagement are a little bit out of sync. Then we are very happy, though, with the policy space that's coming out, the road freight maps and everything else, and we believe it's all step in the right direction. It's building up the understanding of all the parties. We now have a big, and it's not a policy issue, it's more the way it currently operates, is that our port system and the way we access our port system, and let's use Durban Port as an example because it is the biggest, is saying we are currently incentivizing bad behavior and we're rewarding good behavior. No, other way around. We're incentivizing bad behavior, rewarding bad behavior, and we are penalizing good behavior. And why I say that, well, just by an analogy, I've got 2 children, and when they do something good, I give them a smack. And when they do something bad, I give them a sweetie. It's going to be very undesirable, sort of actions that they do, because that's why you've sort of, guided them in that direction. Now, the problem is business is very similar to kids in that we will take the path of least resistance. And yes, we always want sweeties, which is economic returns, and we don't want to do the work, and we want to have it instead of doing breakfast or instead of doing anything. And so now the problem with the port system, very simply, is it is cheaper to come and collect from the Durban port than it is to collect from the inland ports. Which means we are incentivizing every single truck to come into this congested Durban port area, instead of telling them, guys, simply because you can do it and it is cheaper, it doesn't mean it's good for everything. So remember, truck is highly subsidized by government because the road is totally paid for, not by the truck driver himself. Whereas rail pays for the complete rail because there is no subsidy or anything like that. It's the train operator on top. And so what we're finding, guys, is surely we should incentivize good behavior. And the people that are now collecting from the back of the ports or inland port facilities, if they can collect at the same price here as you can collect in the Durban port area, all of a sudden the market will go there. But at the moment you're saying if you go there, we're going to hit you with extra costs. Because there's a cost for the train to take it from the Durban port up to Cato Ridge. And because it's a short distance, it's not as economical as long distances on trains. And so this is the problem, is we're rewarding bad behavior. And the next step of this is, at the moment, the pipeline between Joburg and Durban, it costs 81 cents a litre to get it up to fuel. Trucks believe they are doing it. These diesel buyers are now doing it cheaper by driving the truck down from Gauteng to the Durban port to collect the fuel and drive it up again, because they can do it slightly cheaper than 81 cents a litre. But the outcome of that is now, instead of using the pipeline that our taxpayers have paid a lot of money for, now we've got trucks coming down which are damaging the roads, adding congestion, and fuel should not be in trucks. It shouldn't even really be in trains. It should be in pipelines. And so because we're rewarding the supply chain's bad behavior by having incorrect incentives in place or disincentives, we are now having these perverse outcomes. And it was great when we had one boat arriving, one container come off, one truck fetch. That's very easy. We've got 3,000 or 4,000 containers coming off at a time, 3,000 or 4,000 containers going back, and all of those have to be evacuated the land side. Seaside's easy, one ship arrives. Land side, 3,000 containers needs 3,000 trucks, at the best 1,500 trucks. And so this is some of my bugbear at the moment that we are dealing with, both at the Multimodal Inland Port Association, but also as my day job, which is the CEO of the Cato Ridge Inland Port, because we are saying, you're penalizing my customers who now want to make use of the inland port. They're part of the solution, they're making things work, they're actually taking the leap of faith in going to rail, which rail has not worked very efficiently or effectively in the past. And they're saying, we're prepared to do all that risk, but how can we pay extra, even more money, than collecting from here where we know where the truck is at any given stage? Now, this is the problem, is we've got an unsustainable system, because these poor truck drivers sitting here waiting to get into the port are underpaid, potentially not South Africans, so that you can really, really underpay. And then also these trucks are not getting maintained, because there's no ways you can have a good, well-maintained truck standing in queues like that, because it's just so inefficient. A truck makes money when it's moving. When it's not moving, it ain't making money. And so that's my biggest bugbear, and it's not so much in a policy space, it's the implementation of, because the policy of inland ports has already been agreed by Parliament. The back of ports ones are from Durban port itself, are the old airport, that'll collect the vehicles and automotives and all those various parts. Cato Ridge Inland Port, that's supposed to stop Gauteng traffic from coming past that point into the congested deep CBD. And the last one is the Durban trade port. So there you've got the sort of north, outer, west, and the south campus. Obviously, east is at sea, so you're not going to have one of those inland ports. And now all of a sudden, all of these goods can be collected from these outer gates instead of coming through the Durban, into the CBD, and into the congestion. Now, the problem is, this is international, this is normal. As the port grows, as the city grows, so they compete for scarce landside resources. And as the ships, I must stop saying boats, as the ships have increased in size, the ships have gotten 30 times bigger than they used to be. we haven't got 30 times more landside connections to accommodate these ships. So it's basically we're getting a lot more in than we can get out at the moment, and that's why we have this fundamental issue. And so I believe it's getting looked at. However, this incentivizing bad behavior and incentivizing good behavior, never mind. You know what I'm trying to say. Cut that bit out, please.
Incentivizing bad behavior.
Yes, and penalizing good behavior.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing at the moment, and we can't do that because we will get bad results. And it must be understood, companies are very much like young children. If you can do it, you will do it. You know, there's not too many scrupulous or scruples involved. It's just like, guys, why would I not use a truck if I can get it for 10 rand cheaper? Surely. You don't think about, oh, well, it's making the South African roads a little bit more damage. It's not so good for the green environment and all stuff. That's not what you get measured on. You get measured on, is my supply chain working effectively and efficiently, and then is it cost effective? And how's this discussion about a greater SA Inc., rewarding, fitting, it doesn't fit into the sort of the company on the ground. And
I guess from a margins perspective, because that's how companies function, it's just long term, it just doesn't make sense for their margins.
It doesn't. I mean, business tries to do things cheaper every single time. And what we're saying is, no, do it green and be more expensive. It's going, why? Unless I'm forced to, unless I've got an incentive to do it, there's no rationale for me to do it. And this is the problem. Guys, we want to change the behavior. We have to change the system or the setup that has enabled the previous behavior.
And so what's next? Are we going to see more projects like this? What do you believe the future looks like for South Africa?
So I believe many more projects like this. Obviously, being chairman of the Multimodal Inland Port Association, I have the privilege of knowing a few of them. The news that broke yesterday was that Growthpoint has just committed 8 billion rand to the Cape Winelands project, which is a member of the Inland Port Association, which is amazing because you've now got the biggest fund in the country, REIT, is now getting behind one of these inland ports. Okay, that's got a little bit more of an airport bias as opposed to sort of a rail. They've got the rail bias as well, but as opposed to the sort of shipping heavy cargo movements. But interesting to see that because what we are finding is that we need to start making this mainstream. And what we're calling it is rail served logistics property was not considered a asset class in the past, and we believe that this is something that should be starting to be reconsidered, especially if you're big manufacturers, big logistics, and you can start moving your goods via train. Sure, you couldn't do that before, or in the last 40 years anyway. Excuse me.
And now, obviously, we specifically speaking about just freight, like in terms of goods, but passenger?
So I'm the wrong person to ask about passenger. I've really focused in on freight. And so, what I'm excited about is the fact that and maybe if I can just touch on it, we are based in Cato and Port. Our office is right on the shunting yard over there. And they've got Prasa has got a portion of that, the closest to the road. And having seen those beautiful blue trains arrive and actually move in and out, I haven't seen anyone in them yet from my little vantage point, but just seeing that starting to operate and work is an amazing thing. I don't know how well it's going along, but I'm just happy that, guys, we need to make this work. There's not left or right. It's now, what are we going to do to make it work? And it seems like they are starting to get their act together, which is great, because we need it.
Yeah, that's true. And what do you think is important for everybody to know about this project that we haven't already touched on? So,
thanks. Well, it's amazing how much effect this has on the sort of everyday goods that you use that you wouldn't even know. So, and the fact that Checkers and Timu have started coming in and sort of doing what they're doing, I think everyone has got a lot more understanding of supply chain, or at least how things move. And so I'm hoping that we can become more real with everything. When I say more real, it's guys, let's deal with what actually makes things work. Let's not talk about how we market it or how it sounds good. It's, are we moving things more cost effectively and faster? Yes. So I've spoken in a very roundabout way now. What I'd like colleagues to think about, or your viewers, is, and that maybe that they don't know, is that in order for us to move cargo vast amounts, we need to be very systematic in it. Trains need to be very systematic. Us as South Africans, we don't like systems so much. We tend to like, I don't know, I like to speed and this, and if there's a queue, you're always trying to see if you can get in the front of the queue. That's not the way rail works. We have to respect the system and the hierarchy of transport so that we can get best outcomes for everyone. I noticed it when I was driving, and I haven't had Joburg traffic in a while, and it was a little bit of an eye-opener. But we're all going great, and it's because the guys are diving up the front to try get in. This lane slows down, and everyone slows down hugely. So maybe the guys disappearing up the front got an advantage, but at a massive disadvantage to the whole. And so we need to start acting a little bit more in terms of SA Inc. As opposed to me or our company. And I think that's quite hard, because we all get taught in business schools, economics, if we're all looking after our own best interests, the greater will look after, those combined will look after the whole. It's not the case. We can make more money by pouring, toxic stuff into rivers than refining it, than looking after it and processing it, etc. And the knock-on effects are massive. But my individual benefit of doing that, or my company's benefit, is huge monetary in the short term. And so we need to be a lot more mature in our approach and go, is this good for my business? Is this good for my country? And do I want to be part of the solution, or do I want to be part of the problem? Because we've got enough problems. That's why we as South Africans are such wonderful people, because we are really good at overcoming problems, because they're all over the place.
Yeah, that's pretty true. That's true. And I mean, I like what you're saying, because I think in the short term you're benefiting your organization, but in the long term it will come back to bite you. Like if you dump toxic stuff into the rivers, then you don't have clean water.
Yes.
So it comes back to bite you. So I do like what you're saying, in that you need to think about not just your organization, but the greater community as well.
Think longer term and think about, what do you want to leave for your kids? A pile of money and some shiny cars? Or something that you've grown and had a beautiful impact in the surrounds, on people's lives, whatever the case is. And this can be taken across to any sort of industry. It's not just in the supply chain. And I just believe we need to move away from the selfishness, the I, me, to the how can we do this better. And that will be, but it's hard. It's a lot easier to rely on yourself than to rely on other parties. When you rely on other parties, you do get dropped from time to time. There's miscommunication. So it's not an easy walk. But I think this, and it was interesting, I chat just before we started about how one of your students, you're trying to get them to communicate better. We need to communicate with each other in order to try and get our message across, and that would really be helpful in my view.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've kind of reached the end, but I would like you to just give us one wish that you want from the government and one wish from the industry. What is the one thing that you would like to see changing?
Sure, I should have written
Maybe you
this
can
down.
say three. Maybe one is little. You can say three.
From government side, I'd like to see a journey has started. We need to complete the journey, right the way to the end. And unfortunately, South Africans, I find in the public sector maybe more, is we're really good at starting stuff. We're very bad at maintaining or completing stuff. So we have to actually see this thing through to the end. It needs to be done by wise individuals, because if there are mistakes made in this, or vested interests have outsized advantages, we will have negative outcomes for a generation or two. And that to me is, we cannot afford that. And we're at a very big deficit from our geography on this, right at the south of the world. Our Gauteng is nowhere near the Durban port or any of our ports. So we need to be a lot better in our supply chain, simply to be on the same level as the person who doesn't have our restrictions. And we're not doing that at the moment. So follow through with what's been going. Please do it diligently, wisely, and with the care that it requires, listening to the parties that you have to listen to. But keep it going. You guys are doing great. It's going fast. Keep it going. And then private sector, we have an opportunity as private sector to really leave something and make something that's wonderful. We can either prioritize short-term economic returns and egos, or we can park those things and say, what is it, the essay that I'd like to leave for my children? How does the supply chain look? What does it work? And find out in that framework how you can maximize the profitability of your entity, instead of pulling in the real opposite direction. So guys, it's time now. We need to roll up our sleeves. We need to park the egos at the door. We need to get our hands and feet dirty, because it takes work. We're going to have to work at this. And we're also going to have to understand that not one single entity or one single individual knows it all. This is a highly complex supply chain with many, many facets and moving parts that moves everything from coal down to sugar, down to, underpants. Many different needs, many different requirements. And so if we can find the optimal way to start working together to move these things, we will have a great outcome. And so let's stop scoring own goals. Let's work together. And guys, it's our tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think it would be unfair if I didn't ask you something for the students,
Okay.
right? So I think I need to ask you something that will benefit them. How do you think they need to start thinking about the work for the future in terms of the industry that you're currently in?
Okay, so big picture first is, I believe that, and maybe this university is totally different, but the economic system that we've set up here is also got the wrong goals in mind. It's about having the biggest or having the most money. It's not about who's done the best thing or created the best invention. If you think about what Apple's done, that's an amazing one. These creatives and getting things going and really changing the way we do things. Let's be more into creation. Let's create stuff and let's make stuff. Let's move away from consumption orientated, because that's the first thing youngsters see is the mate with the M3 or the this, and I see it specifically in communities that they believe that the only way to be aspirational is to be a gangster, because those are the only guys who have money and who have the largesse of having money, which is terrible, because that's then their idols or their role models. So I'm hoping that we can bring up a new set of role models, ones that make the main thing the most important thing. Whatever your main thing is, don't make it I want to be a billionaire. Yeah, that's a byproduct of doing something amazing. Get in there, get stuck in, and change the world, or change the country, or change your community one step at a time. But don't see how can I make the most money or extract the most. Do something cool, or whatever. So and so in my space, it's going to be a little bit difficult, especially in the beginning. In rail, is very capital intensive. So if this is interested and you would like to go into the supply chain, it would start early on understanding the real fabric of the supply chain and build on that, because I believe there's going to be huge opportunities in this space that was not available in the past. If you start having 10 train operating companies, and TFR still there, you've got a whole bunch more people that need to know how to do rail, how need to fix things, need to change things, need to drive the train itself. There's just so many opportunities, and that's just on the operational side. When you start getting to the investment side, with this changing landscape, you have even more opportunities. So if this is of interest, roll up your sleeves, find a good course at a good university like UJ, and I actually finished off my honours here. So
nice.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. It was just as it sort of changed from RAW to UJ, so it was
nice.
on the cusp. It's. But remember, guys, this is not the lotto. There's no silver bullet. It's like getting fit, it's like going to gym, it's like getting a good body, it's like all of these things. Time in saddle. The more times you can do it day after day and year after year, you will start becoming lean, mean. But that's it. There's no shortcuts. And everyone in this modern day and age, with sort of the instant gratification that our phones give us, want that instant gratification. There's no shortcut.
Okay.
Do the work. This 10,000 hour story hasn't changed. If you want to be an expert, it takes 10,000 hours to just hit the first rung. The first rung.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming to join us. And hopefully you'll be back soon when the project is done.
Yeah. When I'm greater than I currently am. No hair left. No, but thank you. I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to come up and chat to you and your listeners.
Okay. Thank you so much.